Come out with us and play. Love your London. Have a banana.
Welcome to the latest episode on Angel Islington. Today we're hanging mainly around the City Road Basin, the continued existence of which you have to thank the envisionary Crystal Hale, a local resident sadly no longer with us, but who left a fine legacy behind. We'll be talking also about an old feather merchant's, checking out various types of local architecture, and drinking in 3 of the local pubs, namely the Plaquemine Lock, the Narrowboat and the Island Queen. And it is towards the first of these 3 pubs that we commence this video, by taking the Regents Canal path from where Boris Johnson used to live on Colebrook Row. This is absolutely lovely place to live. Let's imagine living along this canal. I've often thought about it, to be honest. Just really also wanted to show you this tunnel here. This is the Islington tunnel. The canal boats go through the tunnel and they end up sort of near where the Canal Boat Museum is, fairly close to King's Cross. So it goes underneath all those houses for quite a way. But this is the open stretch of the Regents Canal. But yeah. Now, of course, there's no towpath throughout this 878 metre long section, the longest canal tunnel in London. This would have meant that for the 8-year period between when this tunnel was constructed in 1818 until 1826, when a steam tug was finally put into action, horse-drawn barges could only travel down the tunnel if one of the members of staff on the barge laid on his or her back and legged it. Yes, that is the correct terminology. This photo is from a mocked-up demonstration at the Ellesmere Port Canal Museum, but it will give you a rough idea of what we mean. Now, imagine doing that for 878 metres. Obviously, up on street level, horses and their drivers had to find their way to the other side of the canal, so there were way markers set into the pavements. These are, of course, still used to this day by cyclists and ramblers, and many have been updated. Look out for them along the route.
The sun's over the yard arm.
So we could have a beer.
Excellent.
Now, this is the one thing about this place is there are so many pubs. As far as we can see, a lot of them are still remaining open and looks like they're reopening after the pandemic. But a lot of the pubs around here, they have sort of like become kind of gastro pubs.
Look at the kinds of people who live here. This is what do you call it? This is successful territory.
It is. I mean, you know, it's going to be hard to find a pub. Most pints are going to be around about the £6 mark, £6.20.
Let's just buy some titties in the offie and sit apart.
Well, no, because we want to show you.
Because we're failed people. We've got the education, but we don't have the income.
We want to show you some of the pubs around here. And the very first pub we want to show you used to be known as the Prince of Wales. First pub we're going to show you used to be called the Prince of Wales. In fact, I think it was called the Victoria for a while as well, but most of the locals know it as the Prince of Wales. It's changed its name. It doesn't really matter because pubs do change their names. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like. I've not been there. It's fairly new ownership. This pub is called the Plaquemine Lock. Plaquemine. Do you know anything about Plaquemine?
Sounds lovely.
No, it's actually from Louisiana. Plaquemine is a town in Louisiana.
A little dab will do ya.
Plaquemine or Plaquemine is at Sharon. Okay.
Look, I gotta be entertained, or I'm gonna.
Well, we're going to the pub now. It's going to be entertaining. Okay.
They'll go for anything.
Right. So Plaquemine actually comes. It actually comes from the Chitimacha language for the persimmon. The clarkii. There are varieties indigenous to North America of the persimmon, and in the Chitimacha language, Plaquemine is what they called it. So this fine restaurant and pub and gastropub offers Louisiana or Louisian. They sell Louisian food, Louisian cocktails. Okay, time for a bit of history. The owner of the pub is Jacob Kennedy, with one N, and his great-grandmother was Carrie B. Schwing. You can see her name on the side of the family steamer, which was the first vessel to pass through Plaquemine Lock in Louisiana, which was built by Carrie B. Schwing and her husband, and therefore the pub owner's great-grandfather, Jacob Hortenstein. This lock linked the Bayou region with the Mississippi and opened in 1909. So when the current Jacob opened this pub, because of its location overlooking Regents Canal, which has many nearby locks, one of which we'll be checking out later, the obvious name for it was Plaquemine Lock. Incidentally, the murals are by Jacob's mother, Hale Becker. The pub has jazz brunches every Saturday and Sunday, and every Tuesday evening throughout August, the Cosimo Matassa project will be playing live, which is of course a tribute to the Louisiana legend Cosimo Matassa, who died in 2014. Here's a short snippet recorded a few years ago in Walthamstow. The link to the full video is in the description below.
Wanna go north, east, south, west, any which way, as long as I'm moving, as long as I'm moving, as long as I'm moving, baby.
We had hoped to try the crawfish boil, for which the pub made a name for itself when it opened, using locally sourced crayfish, but sadly it was off the menu. Crawfish boil is a Louisiana staple, served with andouille, sausages, corn and potatoes. We hope it'll be back soon. It's not like we're short of American crayfish in our waters, where they are an invasive species. Whilst the bonier and less palatable American signal crayfish, Procambarus lenusculus, is prevalent in British waterways, it just so happens that, according to a report by the Environment Agency, the link is in the description, the Regents Canal is full of Procambarus clarkii, which is the red swamp crayfish or Louisiana crawfish, so exactly the right species for Louisian cuisine. They're illustrated by the little square symbols on this map, and you can see there, Regents Canal. And you can have a shorter carbon footprint than across the road. However, there are probably countless rules and regulations why this cannot be an easy solution to the threat that invasive crawfish, or crayfish, are causing. Perhaps someone in the comments would like to explain it to us. So, no crawfish boil for us, but the ciders were reasonable, £4.60. Well, reasonable for this area, though there was a service charge added on, in spite of the fact that we weren't eating. Even so, it still worked out cheaper per pint than the other two pubs that we visited next. After we paid, however, we got a special treat. Because they knew that we were vloggers, they brought us, unexpectedly, a side of spicy fries and an oyster each, which was really tasty and very nice of them. I don't suppose mere mortals get this wonderful treatment, but who knows, Louisian hospitality is after all legendary. To be honest, every little helps. We are working under a tremendously small budget, so whenever someone does something like this, which saved us from having to pay for lunch later, it saves us money. We rely on people's generosity, as well as yours. There are details about our Patreon page in the description below. But if you would like to help us for free, share our videos on social media, hit that like button, and subscribe to our channel, remembering to hit that notification bell. None of that will cost you a penny, but it helps us considerably with the YouTube algorithms. Yeah, that was really nice, wasn't it? It was well, we're going to be checking out a couple of the pubs to find out which. I don't really want to. I mean, they're all going to be so different, so I don't really want to say which is the winner.
We're not going to do. We're not going to do a 3, 2, 1. The test tube is not happening.
We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that today. But we. But well, she shouldn't be in the middle of the road like that.
No, but this is territory. It's doing its beat.
Cool. So, that was fun, wasn't it?
A real tail on her.
I think we enjoyed that. We're gonna go.
Flying right in the road. That's a good London cat.
Oh, what? Let's go and check out the sharks.
Cat fix.
Let's go and check out the sharks.
The sharks?
Yeah.
Real sharks?
Well,
That's a
Did you not know that there are sharks here?
No sharks.
We can see some sharks.
Boy. Dead sharks?
Very dead.
Is that Damien Hirst guy?
No, it is art though. It's not Damien Hirst. It's more fun than that. Okay, get ready for this.
The big reveal.
3, 2, 1.
These things remind me of
Where is it?
crafting. Oh, babies! Tristan, babies! There's only one. We were told there's 2.
Where's the sharks? Hey, come with me. We need to find the sharks. Where's that thing over there? Hang on just a sec. No, I can't see them, but just in case we don't see them, excuse me, you know where the sharks are? You know there's some sharks here.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
They're supposed to be here, but it seems to have disappeared.
they've disappeared.
Yeah, they was here.
The council moved them, did they?
I don't know. I was there 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I actually see them.
Huh?
I was here 2 weeks ago and I was there then. They was at a different location, but they got moved down here.
Yeah, they were in Haggerston.
Yeah, that's right. They was on like a big pontoon.
Yeah.
They're gone now.
Oh, what a shame. So, very disappointed that there's no sharks. But I'm going to tell you what all this was about. Basically, an artist called Jamie Shorten, and he created this amazing installation of these 5 fiberglass sharks, and he stuck them in the middle of the canal in Haggerston. Now Hackney Council, this was without any permission, Hackney Council weren't happy about it. It was there, they were there for a few months, and it was sort of like went through limbo about sort of like, you know, was it because it was sort of freestanding in the middle of the canal. And the idea was that these sharks, these amazing sharks, are going to, we're going to give lectures on urbanism and the environment. But anyway, so when Hackney Council had enough of it, overnight they mysteriously appeared a few weeks ago. They mysteriously appeared here in the City Road Basin, and then apparently in the last few days we've just missed it. Obviously, I was thinking that Islington Council might sort of be a bit more, art friendly, to be honest.
Well,
I mean, it wasn't doing any harm because it's not
giant fiberglass debris friendly is hard to do.
Yeah, but it wasn't in the way really, because
Well,
this is a basin. It doesn't go any further than this.
Oh, that's fair enough.
In fact, talking about the basin. The basin was saved by a lady, a very interesting lady, and her name was Crystal Hale. Crystal Hale founded the Angel Community Narrowboat Association, as well as the Angel Canal Festival. She's the daughter of A.P. Herbert, who was the MP for Oxford University, because between 1603 and 1950, believe it or not, Oxford University had 2 MPs in the House of Commons.
Bet you didn't know that.
No.
Exciting.
It stopped being a constituency after the 1950s. From 1603 to 1950, Oxford University had 2 MPs, and one of them was A.P. Herbert. A.P. Herbert, along with Arthur Salter, were the last 2 MPs for Oxford University, and he wrote loads of books about the Thames. He actually lived in Hammersmith. And his daughter, Crystal Hale, who died a few years ago, she campaigned, among other things, to save City Road Basin, because the whole City Road Basin was all going to be developed. You see these huge buildings over here.
Oh yes, none of those were there when we lived up.
None of those were there.
None of this was here.
It was thanks to Crystal Hale, who started the Islington Boat Club, and it's now, I believe it's Crystal's daughter Rebecca is now in charge. You haven't got a card on you, Sharon? Have you?
I'm afraid not.
It's alright, I don't need one, but
Oh God!
it might be difficult for you.
No, I've got one. Here we go. Go on.
There's always some in there. He always comes prepared. He's so
Thank you.
professional.
Thank you. What's
yes.
your name? Sorry.
Tom Diamond.
Tom
yeah.
Diamond.
Yeah.
Fantastic name.
Right, good name.
And you're the.
I'm a volunteer at the moment during the summer,
Oh right.
and I help with groups. Yeah, so we have a youth club which is 9 to 19-year-olds. We do a lot of kayaking and other water sports. We can do lots of fun trips like narrowboating, powerboating, canoeing, kayaking, supboarding, which is like a stand-up paddleboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also have a group for over 50s called the Upper Deckers. They do very similar things. They meet once a week on Tuesdays. Sorry, I forgot to mention the youth club is Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Right.
You can find lots of info on islingtonboatclub.com.
Okay.
We also do groups from schools. We do some special need groups, some college groups, and we also do some corporate groups. We do team building and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And I take it all the prices are on your website.
Yeah, all the.
And is there sort of, do you have to book quite far in advance, or do you have?
It depends. So at the moment we're a little bit more busy because it's the summer. So if you wanted your child to go on the youth club this summer, I would advise booking now so you can get a place, because places are often filled up quite quickly.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And you have like a bar or cafe or anything that people can.
We don't really have any facilities like that at the moment. We're mainly just a water sports club.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Good.
Do you remember that the top of the Angel Inn, the pub, which Angel Station is named after? Supposedly, and this is still the case today, no building in this area must be higher than the top of that dome, because there are so many of these tall buildings around now. Clearly that area is quite limited to quite a small area. Now we're going to look at a couple of buildings. You saw one of them before. Now I must say that Canaletto Tower is really nice. I don't normally like these big huge steel and glass carbuncles, especially when they take the place of something else, but in the case of Canaletto Tower it is a thing of beauty, and opposite it there is another tower, much older, which is also a thing of beauty. So I'm looking forward to showing you those two, because there is quite a contrast. Maybe in the comments you can say which is your favourite. As you can see, this is now where City Road Basin ends. Crystal managed to save most of it. There are lots of phone masts, tall buildings, automatic doors and whatnot around here, not the friend of the wireless lavalier microphone. Hence the return of the crackling. Sorry about that, but it's all we can afford right now, so make our channel successful, like us, etc. Anyhow, what I was trying to say was that Crystal Hale managed to save most of the basin. Here's an old map, and here is a bit that has been lost to development. Were it not for Crystal's tenacious activism and awareness raising, the entire basin would now be blocks of flats and office blocks. So thank you, Crystal. Anyhow, this is Canaletto Tower, named after the wonderful Venetian Vedutisti who made London look positively Venetian in his gorgeous vedute. That's Italian for a cityscape, by the way. See, this is an educational channel. And this is the award-winning Canaletto Tower. Unlike many of the nondescript glass and steel buildings around it, we think that this one will age really well. 31 stories, this is by Studio, and it includes a swimming pool, a restaurant, a bar and a cinema for its residents. We did ask if we could look around, but apparently it was not a good day for it, so we might come back some other time. But, as I said, this is not the only tall building in the immediate area, but there's only one other, in our view, that matches it for beauty.
This is Kestrel House, and it's already stood the test of time as it was built in 1968. 18 stories high, it looks as great today as it did when the Frank Dies Bussell partnership completed it. Will Canaletto Tower look as great in 53 years, in 2074, I wonder? But more to the point, will Kestrel House still be there in 2074? I was shocked to discover that Kestrel House is not listed. Perhaps we should try and do something about that before it's too late.
This is Kestrel House. There it is. Do you not recognise Kestrel House?
Oh, well, it's a famous piece. It's famous.
It's famous. You know...
That's all I'm going to say. This is more interesting.
Hang on. Kestrel House is on the front cover of... which album? The Streets, Original Pirate Material. The Streets, Original Pirate Material. Iconic photo taken by Ruth Brees Luxembourg, I believe her name was.
Isn't it lovely?
Well,
Yes,
it still looks...
in good shape,
Yeah, it looks the same as it did in the photo. I mean, the photo's not that old, of course.
Look, no cladding.
No.
That was well made,
Yeah.
and it's aged well. It's got the brickwork, it's not got that weird plastic facade that just doesn't...
So maybe in the comments you can say which you prefer. Do you prefer Kestrel House, or do you prefer over there, or do you prefer Canaletto House?
In case you're wondering, whereas a one-bedroom flat in Canaletto House is currently on the market for £750,000, which is probably less than I was expecting given the extra facilities, a much smaller one-bedroom flat in Kestrel House is on the market for £330,000 at the moment. So well under half the price, but probably higher than what many of you were expecting. It's all about location. Incidentally, if you're wondering what that red rusty thing is in Corten steel next to Kestrel House, that is the Bunhill 2 Energy Centre, which opened just last year and is actually on the location of the old City Road station, which closed in 1922. The Energy Centre captures waste heat from the London Underground system and turns it into green energy to heat surrounding homes. It's all very clever, using an ammonia heat pump to transfer the warm air from the tube into warm water, which is then used for heating, and in the summer the fan can be reversed to help cool the underground down. That flue you see there going up the side of Kestrel House of course ensures that the air quality of the residents of Kestrel House itself is not impaired in any way.
So we're here now on Wharf Road. We have not one but two galleries, very different galleries. This is Victoria Miro, nothing to do with Joan Miro. Tens of millions of pounds in art sales are made here at the Victoria Miro, and it is free to attend. You do have to, at the moment, you have to book in advance to get a time slot, but they have lots of very interesting exhibitions there.
Oh, hey. I'm just thinking for my collection. It's not that interesting though.
No, it's fine. Now next door, over here, is a completely different art exhibition. This is the Parasol unit. They're closed at the moment, but a Parasol unit is also free to enter. And that's a non-profit place, so quite different, Parasol unit and Miro. But if you live in this area and you want to see some art, absolutely fantastic. We're gonna have a little walk down here now. This is this block of flats is coated in is covered in that Corten steel again. Remember the Corten steel that we saw?
Whatever it is, it's the
stuff that rusts very quickly. Yeah. I quite like it.
Yeah, well, you put it this way, it gets to that point and it stays like that.
Yes.
Whereas, you wait for copper, you wait for the non-ferrous metals, they wait and wait, and then they gradually go vertically.
Yeah.
It's lovely, but it takes 30 years.
Yeah. This rusts very fast. Okay.
It looks like any ship's hull if you don't put anti-fouling paint on it. It goes like that in a few days.
Yeah.
What you don't want is to be underneath it. I mean, look, you see the little... Look, come and have a look at this. You don't want to have other building structures under it. Because this is what happens.
Yeah.
And there's no getting that off. You have to use acid etching and sandblasting and all that. So it ain't actually that aesthetic, to be honest.
I like it.
But it's also covered in dust. Put your fingers on it, Chris. Rub and show the camera.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And gradually that will corrode right through. It's not long lasting. What? Someone's been climbing this thing. Those are footprints. How did they do that? Oh, abseiling. It's probably from cleaning the windows.
Yeah.
That'll be the window cleaners, absolutely. Except for saying that one spot. Oh, these urban explorers, Tristan, God.
Yeah, so this is the...
Hey, come. I think this is red cedar. I can't speak to it, I'm too short. If you lick your finger and put some liquid on it, and then smell the finger. There's a bit of aromatic there.
Can't smell anything.
It's probably been sitting out too long, but that looks like Kuya Placata. That's red cedar. Yeah, there's a little bit.
Yeah?
That's northern northwest.
You think that's red cedar?
Yeah. I'm a Vancouver girl, I know it when I see it.
Don't go anywhere. In this episode, we are still visiting two pubs, the Narrowboat and the Island Queen. We had actually wanted to show you a fourth pub, the Wenlock Arms, which is a real blast from the past, but it wasn't open on the day that we were filming. However, it's still going strong, saved recently in extremis from demolition. Unlike the surrounding gastropubs, the Wenlock Arms is a refreshingly unpretentious spit and sawdust type place, with a piano and a regular jazz band on the weekends.
So we are here at Plumage House. This was run one of the last remaining Jewish-owned businesses in this area, Bestimmt, and he was a feather merchant, and he used to supply feathers for hats and stuff like that, but mainly for theatres and for the BBC, as in particular. All those BBC dramas from years ago. Probably he made the feathers for that, or rather he supplied the feathers. When new regulations came in about exotic feathers and stuff like that, it fell in out of favour to use real feathers, because then people would use artificial ones instead. So eventually he got less and less work. So it's run originally by Bestimmt. Then his son-in-law then took the business over. I think his name was Harry Lipson, and basically looked after it until 1993, and there's no one then left over to take over the family business, so it went. And I think there used to be a pub here as well.
Indeed, there was a pub, and it used to be called the Royal Standard, although obviously long before the pub was dedicated to feathers. Now, although the normally reliable pub wiki lists the last landlord as being Bertie C. Evans in 1944, I'm pretty sure that at least a part of this house was still running as a pub until the 1970s. And if we go right back into the past, back into the mid-1800s, this area was actually a real going concern, and it was known as the Royal Albert Saloon and Pleasure Gardens, and it was actually from here that the aeronaut Charles Green, who was born just around the corner from here in Goswell Road, and was probably Britain's most famous balloonist at the time, made many of his famous ascents. Watch The Aeronauts, starring Eddie Redmayne, to get a rough idea, though be warned that there are a lot of historical inaccuracies.
In 2012, we were actually here, and we went to a little naughty event called Jubilegal. It was sort of to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee.
And we found a free rubber boat.
Yes, we did. Basically, well, that was the following year.
Oh, was it? All right.
But basically, we didn't actually take part, but we filmed it from the banks, and it was very, very colourful. We've got some footage here to show you of it. Obviously, this is 2012, and technology is not going to be so great, so the footage is not going to be as amazing as this. But people just basically, in their hundreds, turned up with in inflatable dinghies and just basically piled them up with drinks and went all the way down the canal, from sort of that point over there all the way down to the lock over there, and actually went into the lock, as you can see here. It was great fun. They actually repeated it the following year in another event called Canalival, I think, like Carnival and Canal, but that one didn't go down as well because basically they probably weren't really thinking, they didn't realise that it's a nesting period for lots of birds, and it wasn't, they weren't really thinking about that. So yeah, it was a shame really, because it was a lot of fun, and as far as I'm aware, no one got hurt or anything. It didn't really do any harm. Yeah, so we're at the Narrowboat, a little pub, Canal Riverside pub. A bit more expensive this one than the last one, £6 a pint of cider, but look at the view. I mean, obviously you are paying for the view. I'll do a very, very brief walk around. Yeah.
So that's a narrowboat. To be honest, you're paying for the view. £6 a pint is sadly becoming the norm in this area, though after paying just £4.60 a pint at the Plaquemine Lock, not to mention the free oysters, I'm sure you will appreciate why we didn't hang around too long. Plus, we have one more pub to visit, the Island Queen, just around the corner from the narrowboat, before finishing this episode. And, quite suitably, it is on Noel Road. Yes, we have gone full circle, since we were in Noel Road in the previous episode to talk about its famous residents Joe Orton and his neighbour who brought the Beatles together, Ivan Vaughan. Check it out now if you haven't already. And actually, Jacob Kennedy, remember him, the guy who runs the Plaquemine Lock, was actually born directly opposite this pub, so it seems a suitable place for our final pint of the day. I can't remember how much a pint was here, probably about £5.50 or so, but whereas at the narrowboat you pay for the view, here at the Island Queen it's all about the sumptuous decor inside, as well as the utterly charming bar staff who are very complimentary about my trousers, which were designed by Sharon incidentally. The Island Queen pub was built in 1851. It is Grade 2 listed, thank goodness, and it gets its name from the famous Mississippi steamboat of the same name. So that's two pubs within a very short area with a palpable connection to the American Deep South. I told you this was a land of eccentrics. Next time on Love Your London, we'll be checking out a pub named after Bill Murray, but which one? And why is there a mural of Billy Connolly on the outside? We'll be talking about Pink Floyd and why the area is so important to them, and about some of the local school children. We'll be travelling up and down Essex Road. We'll be talking about the Union Chapel as well as the extraordinary Canonbury Tower. And, of course, we'll be visiting a couple more pubs, this time the Compton Arms and the Middleton Arms. There's that name again. Till next time.
From Acton Town to Wimbledon, from Brixton to beyond. Love your London. Have a banana.